Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you're listening. Joined with me this evening, as always, and Mr. Chris Cute.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
We have an MIA this week. Alan is unfortunately unable to join us. Apparently, his other half has decided that he's got to do some family stuff. So, unfortunately, he won't be Unfortunately, I'll leave you to decide. But he won't be with us this evening. Joe Whitaker, he's with us.
You're right, Tom, yeah.
And he puts the band in bandsaw. He's our very own birthday boy, and Mr. Jamie Page. Happy birthday, Jamie.
How you doing?
Happy birthday, Jamie.
Happy birthday, mate.
Yeah, we're not singing.
No, you're not. Everyone else can, but you're not.
Look at it this way, man. You're a year closer to my age. I'm sure that makes you feel good.
Oh, God.
You always have that 60 years on him now, Chris.
It may well be my birthday, but I've also got a present for everybody else. You've actually got a double dose of Jamie today, because right after this show finishes at 6 p.m. Eastern, you can head over to Javi's Woodshop, where the reveal of the winners of the Almost Useless Challenge will be revealed. So I'll post a link on the Makers International Facebook page for the link to Javi's channel, where we'll be going live for that.
Nice.
Okay.
So that's for the folks that are watching us live right now, right?
Yeah, that's for everyone live right now.
Okay, cool.
Presumably, By the time this goes out as the audio podcast, that will have happened, which is kind of like
that would have happened 3 days. That would have happened 3 days ago.
Joe's going, cut it. Move on, guys.
bit like entering a quiz show after it was on the telly 4 days ago, and you can look after the answers. But yeah, anyway. So we've got a few shout outs and thank yous as always this week. So let me just run through those. We actually had some really nice comments after last week's show, and the first one was Robert Evans. So I've written some notes and I can't even read my own it's not even writing I can't read, it's my typing I can't read. Oh yes, the photo. I'm not publicising that photo, Robert, so it's out there somewhere, but you can go and find it for yourself, because that's the end of that. Steve French from the least said about that photo, the better in my book. Cheers for that, Chris. Steve French over at Wooden Stuff. I didn't actually know about did anyone read the comment he said about it's actually not Carol Kolonowski, it's Carl, by all accounts. Now, I met Carl in person at a show, and I could have sworn he said his name was Carol, but I'm a bit deaf anyway, so that may actually be true.
He told me the same thing. I mean, I've asked him several times how to pronounce his name, and he's always said Carol. So that's how I've always said it. But okay, if Steve, I'm not going to argue with you, buddy. If you say so, that's the way it is.
I thought it was Dave.
If in doubt, yeah, nice one, Trigger. Ragtie, yeah, we're super chuffed that you like the show. We really genuinely do like it when people say they like the show, they're entertained, it's fun. That's absolutely cool. I think I can say that on behalf of the 5 of us. So Sumo's Projects, good day, mate. Bob Lee's Workshop. This was a guy he's been making for 40 years. I haven't been breathing for that long. I think that's awesome. So good on you, brother. Here's to another 40. Bruce Chastain will get... yes, Bruce made a comment about not knowing what was going on with your finger, Chris. So maybe you can talk about that next week when we do the spotlight on you.
You're not doing a spotlight on me next week.
Well, maybe you can liaise with Bruce and just let him in on the story on that one. Yeah, cool. That gets you off the case, and on to Wacky Woodworks. So he was saying about not quite knowing the numbers and subscribers and all the rest of it, but maybe 100k subscribers is a long way off. But enjoy the journey along the way, and aim high and miss low, as they say. So Then the last one, KSFWG. Yeah, again, we're all glad that you guys like the shows, and yeah, anybody out there listening, watching, thinking what the hell are these guys talking about, we do like it when you get in touch. So you can contact us via all our social media, and Joe or Chris or both will put all of those links in the description, so it makes it easier for you to type good things or slate us. You know, if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Hey, Joe.
Thank you. I don't know how long I've been living in Yorkshire, but whatever you say.
Good stuff. So, do we have any random listener questions from last week? Or
I've got one.
Okay.
Well, what the heck are we talking about today? What is with this Indian and the arrow? This is just an FYI for people that are listening. This is Richard's topic, and this is the title he gave me. And I'm, guys, okay, I'll run with it, Richard, but I don't have a clue. What is the whole Indian and the arrow about? That's the random list. That's the random, listener question.
It's a bit like doctors and nurses.
Because chances, oh my God, chances are that's pretty much probably what everyone's thinking. Well, this was actually a topic that I was thinking about a couple of months ago, actually, and we went in a different direction. It never kind of happened, but it's always been sort of in the back of my mind. Now, as you guys know, and probably a lot of people that listen or watch or whatever, I do a lot of my making for a living, yeah. And as a result of that, I try and invest in both myself and my business in terms of efficiency, time, and all the rest of it. And I know a lot of other people do as well. And I actually spent an obscene amount of money Friday on a new miter saw. I bought the new tiny baby Festool Capex miter saw, which is like basically jam sandwiches for the rest of the month for everyone.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of money. And it reminded me of a couple of comments that I've had, and I've seen other people have as well, which was, along the lines of, I could do that as well if I had a workshop with £1 million worth of tools, or if I had that tool, I could make that, and those kind of things. Yeah. Now, right. I don't want to turn this into a brand name drop in, someone's better than someone else, and make other people feel like that they're worse off and all the rest. That's not the case, because this is a level playing field. But these comments, I'm sure most people have seen these comments, yeah. And Jay Bates, I think he had a similar comment, because he's got, or you may or may not, he's got a Festool Domino, which is an expensive tool, and he had one of those similar comments, and he turned around and said, "It's the Indian, not the arrow." And the analogy was, it's the guy operating the tool, not the tool, that's the important thing. Does that make sense?
I got it.
Yeah.
No.
So that's where the name comes in. So from my point of view, just like from everyone else's, I guess, a lot of money to spend on anything is a lot of money. It doesn't matter what it is you're buying, but it's about the relevance of the actual purchase or the item that's being purchased or whatever. Yeah. Now, along with that, somebody else had said they'd paid an awful lot of money for a hand tool, like $280 odd for a Veritas or a Lee Nielsen hand plane, I think it was, or something like that. A lot of money anyway. And I just thought, I'd never seen a comment where somebody turned around and said, "Oh, I could do that as well if I had a $300 hand plane." I don't know if you guys have seen anything like that, if that's the case.
No, I haven't. So, but I get your point, because there are, if you do traditional tool working in your shop, and you really want some of the top of the line, really elite, nice hand planes, for instance, like you're talking about Veritas, whatever the case may be, you pay a lot of money for those compared to going to your local knockoff hardware store and buying, a Stanley, a block plane. Let's just say a block plane. Yeah. You could buy a Stanley block plane for, I don't know, what, $40 nowadays? But if you want to go get a Veritas or one of really upper end, it's going to cost you a couple hundred.
Yeah.
And nobody ever questions that. Why is that?
That's very true. But also, see, the real kicker that got me was that you do hear an awful lot of comments along the hand tool side that tool is a joy to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can get that, because I can see that from both the hand tool and the power tool side. So this was kind of the idea of the topic was, there's people out there that are in my position that might do it for an income, and there are people which I guess are in sort of your position, Chris, and your position, Joe, and your position, Jamie, and a lot of the other listeners who do it for fun as a hobby. Does that, or you're nodding agreement?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that, and a lot of cases there are people that are like that you just like talked about, Joe and Jamie and I, that are doing it for a hobby, but some of us may have aspirations to actually do it as a living at some point in time too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I started out as doing it for myself, I was using a lot of Ryobi tools, and then I kind of upgraded one or two to Makita tools. It's kind of an evolution. It doesn't matter what the tool is and what the kind of price point is. That's kind of irrelevant. But sticking with the hobby side of things, is it not kind of accurate to say, that's your hobby, that's something that you love doing, that's something you enjoy, so isn't that even more reason to spend maybe a little bit more on something which is a joy to use, because what you're doing with it is something you enjoy doing? Does that make sense?
I'm going to let Joe take that, because I think probably I will piggyback off of what Joe has to say, because I think I know what he's going to say about that. Go ahead.
Well, I would say so, because the way that I would look at it is, if you took any other hobby that wasn't making, because I think making is a very kind of unique hobby in the way that you can bring an income from your hobby. There isn't many other hobbies where that is the case. Yeah. If you take something along the lines of stamp collecting, coin collecting, I know these are old-fashioned ideas of hobbies, but you hear all the while about rare coins and rare stamps that fetch a high price. You've got an argument there of you paying thousands of pounds for this little black penny stamp.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that? You're passionate about that.
It's the pleasure, isn't it?
Exactly. If that's what gives you joy, then who is anybody to question that you want to go out and spend X amount on something? You've got every right to spend what you want to spend. You're always going to have the people like complaining because they haven't got it, and they think that it's that gives you your skill level. But as the title of the show states, it's if you don't know how to use it, it's might as well stay in the box it came in.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Is it's the passion of doing it. I mean, it doesn't matter where. Say your hobby's cycling, and there's a lot of people out there that do cycle. That I can get the fact that you might want a more expensive, lighter bike, or more expensive, more comfortable saddle or wheels or whatever it is. But from my point of view, it's nothing. I personally don't see anything right or wrong, regardless of what your end result or whatever the hobby is, as to where that Indian arrow, where that kind of criticism has relevance. Does that make sense? And I'd be really interested, Jamie, if you're following the comments, if anyone's listening, and I'd really genuinely love to hear other people's views on this, not just the four of us. So sorry, Chris.
They're all kind of talking amongst themselves. Mate, Sterling's there, Simon Harmon's there, Heath Knuckles, Shogun Jimmy. Yeah, they're all there.
Nice.
Come.
I think that Richard, I'm going to be more of a kind of a pragmatist as far as that is, and I'm only speaking for myself, and not anybody else, because my view on this is, look, if spending a lot of money on your tools, if you're doing this as a hobby, I'm talking about as a hobbyist, if you want to invest into your hobby that heavily, then there should be nobody to question you. That's your money. You do what you want to do with your friggin' money and your friggin' time. If that's going to make you happy, God love you, brother. And I would not let anybody question me on that, because you know what? You have no right to question me on that, because that's my money. It's my tool. It's my shop. You have no place in there as far as your big nose and your opinion when it comes to what I'm using and what I don't use. Here's my take on that. I'm a bit more of a pragmatist. As a hobbyist, I can't justify the purchase of let's say a Powermatic table saw, or a Festool Domino, or, I can't justify that because I am not making a living at this. Would I like to have them? Because I know that they work really, really, really nice. Yes, I can. I would like to have them, but I just can't justify the expenditure because I know I can get the same job done, maybe not quite as nicely, but I can do it for a lot less money. And when you're working on a budget and you have a household budget and your shop budget isn't that big, that just makes sense. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of those comments that you get about people that have a problem with the green tools or the yellow tools or whatever the case, and having them in your shop, I think that has a lot more to do with envy than it does having to do with, I can do that if I had that, because you know what, you can buy, Richard, like you and I have discussed, you can buy a router and do the same thing a Festool Domino does. You can buy a cheaper Delta or Ryobi table saw and do the same thing the Powermatic table saw can do, and still get it done. And, it's not the Arrow. It is by all means the Indian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Billy McCord's in the room. He just says, he goes for a tool that he can afford that will get the job done.
Yeah, and that's got to be the overriding. I think the overriding decision. If do I need to get this job done? Whatever it is, that tool will do it. That will work.
Well, wait, because Richard, like in your position, there are tools like the Domino that, as a business, you're doing this for a living now. Okay, that's a totally different story than talking about hobby work. If I have a tool that I can invest in, like a Domino, I'm doing casework, for instance. Yeah. That Domino, if I spend the money on that Domino, that's going to save me money in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And also time as well. And that's the thing,
Well, time is money. Time is money.
Absolutely. It's both time, it's money for the person doing the job, but it's also money for the person paying for the job. Because it's, a lot. I bought a Domino 18 months ago. And that is still to this day the most expensive tool I've ever purchased, and it was like a sick. You hand the card over it, and there's this big lump in your throat, but it literally paid for itself for the one job I got it for, and that was making 7 or 8 wardrobe doors, and they were all done in a day. And there's no way I could have, priced that job without any input from. Not that tool, if that makes sense. It wouldn't have been cost effective.
Well, you wouldn't have got it done in a day. Let's put it that way.
But here's the other side of it. This is kind of relevant to the hand tool side. That tool is a joy to use. It's fun to use, and that makes the whole process more pleasurable. So even if you're not doing it for money and you're doing it because you like doing it, and you can afford it, or you can justify that expense out of your household budget and all the rest of it, it is a joy to use. Just like that $300 Veritas smoothing plane. So, I kind of don't really care either way, but it's, it's the pleasure and it's the everything. It's everything. It's not just one side or the other that is relevant. Does that make sense? I think anyway.
Well, I think it does. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, I think, like when you were saying earlier about how you don't see the comments like criticising people who spend a lot of money on a hand tool, I think hand tools give that air of skill in using them. Everybody agrees to use hand tools. You have to have that level of skill. Not anybody on the street can pick up a plane and make it work the way it's supposed to. But what people need to realise, that not anybody can pick up a Festool Domino and have a joint match perfect and be strong. Like the skill is still there with using power tools. In a lot of cases, I would argue that you need a lot more skill to use power tools. Like I'll often just sooner pick up a chisel to just take off a little bit of extra material as opposed to get a router, set it up, make sure it's all precise just to remove a small area. So it can go both ways, really.
I think they're two different skills.
Yeah. I think they are too. But I think what we're talking about is ease. What we're really talking about is ease of use and efficiency. Because let's face it, some tools are more precise than others.
Yeah.
a Veritas block plane, I'm going to assume, is going to be in a lot more precise block plane than the Stanley that you'd pick up off the hardware shelf for $40. And so it really depends on your level of wanting to be, get the perfect stuff done. I'm very, to say the least, I'm very liberal about how my things go together. I'm the good enough type. Okay, I'll give you that. I am not the anal person that's going to worry about, is that joint perfectly fit, and am I going to fret? I don't have OCD in that area. It's just, does it work is my whole deal. If it works and it doesn't look bad, it's good enough for me. But I understand that not everybody's like that. And people do want precise work. And especially if you're doing it for a living, you probably do want to have that level of proficiency and you want to have that level of accuracy. And sometimes, not always, sometimes the tool does matter in that regard that you're using.
We've got a couple more comments over here. We've got Brian Bales. I'm not going to say exactly what he said because I don't think it's PG rated. He goes, these days I buy once and cry once. The haters can go poop into a hat. And then you got Simon Harmon. He goes, I use my tools for work, but I still like to buy the cheap tool and to find out if the new tool would be used for an upgrade when it breaks.
That's a great point.
And then he goes,
that's what I've done myself.
Yeah, he goes, my plunge saw is a perfect example. Mine cost £80 off Amazon.
Yeah, you see, well, the thing, I think that this is my personal opinion, when you look at, I'm going to talk power tools because, honestly, I've not got a huge amount of skill with the hand tools, and particularly the hand plane, I must confess. If you look at the different types of circular saw, and when I say circular saw, I mean, the old skill saw type circular saws all the way up to the new really expensive plunge saw, track saw things. They all do the same. I said do again. They all do the same job, don't they? Yeah, they cut a straight line in a piece of material. Yeah, I think there's two important factors in the different price points. The first one is the speed at which you can carry out that cut. So if you take a expensive track saw, you put the track on the sheet of plywood, say where you want it to cut, it cuts, and you've got the job done. Yeah. If you've got a cheaper, older circular saw, you can still achieve that, but you might have to work out what your offset is, or make like a track, because a lot of people now will make tracks for their circular saws. Yeah. Then you've got maybe a lot more mess compared to the more expensive. Right. So all these things, all these little factors that aren't always thought about. Yes, it does the same job, and if you spend time setting it up and being a bit sort of finicky with it, you can get just as accurate a cut between the two, and probably as good a finish as well if you've got a similar blade in there.
Yeah,
at both ends of the scale.
Well, but Richard, you could go from. You could go from a cheap Ryobi Craftsman skill saw, circular saw, and you could clamp a straight edge board onto a piece of, let's say, sheet goods, and make sure, but take the time to make sure it's lined up perfectly, and get the same result as you would on a track saw. And then you could go buy like, let's say, and I'm going to drop names here. I'm sorry, I know you don't want to bring products into this, but then you could go buy a DeWalt track saw, or you could go buy a Festool track saw. Now, the question that you really have to ask yourself, and I'm talking about as a hobbyist, not as a business person, once again, is the difference between the cheap Ryobi circular saw and the board to the DeWalt to the Festool worth the investment to me? Is that going to, and I'll be honest with you, the Festool and the DeWalt, while I know they have got to be fantastic tools and they've got to be quick and easy to use, I can't justify that expenditure when I know I can get done. When I know as a hobbyist, I can get this relatively the same thing done with the Ryobi in a straight board.
Sure. And there are guys out on site that are using that kind of Ryobi with a board to do work commercially as well. Don't forget, just
Absolutely.
like there are guys in their sheds with Festool or Mayfell track saws.
Right, but excuse me, Joe. But if I knew that DeWalt or that Festool was going to make me happier, and I would really love to have it, then by God, yes, I would absolutely go out and buy it, because that's just happens to be the passion that I have. I would. Oh yeah, I want to have that, and I don't think you shouldn't blame anybody for that kind of want. I mean, it's their money, it's their tool, their shop.
There's no difference between that analogy and what shoes make you happy for the ladies, or the handbags, and the cars, the motorbikes, or the jackets for the guys. I'm kind of stereotyping there, but you get the idea.
Yeah, bingo. And I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's right. I was going to actually make the same point as far as happiness, but in a different way. Still, from a hobbyist point of view, because that's what it still is to me. It's just a hobby. I think a perfect example is a project I'm doing at the minute. I'm doing some radiator covers. Now, I've made a few before, and I've always just used a biscuit joiner, which was £30, I think, when I brought it in. It was dirt cheap, and I haven't upgraded since. I haven't found the need to. But I know that it's a pain to use because it's hard to get aligned properly, and the fence isn't very good on it and everything like that. So I took the decision. I knew I would get frustrated making these radiator covers. So the investment I've made is by buying one of those Triton dual dowel joiners. Now, this was £120 tool.
Yeah.
I won't make the money back on the radiator covers that I'm making, but it's going to be worth it to me because I'm going to enjoy the process a lot more because I haven't got the frustration. So I'd look at, say, such as a track saw. I haven't got a track saw. When I set up a circular saw, I have to set up a straight edge with the right distance from my line, and it's a pain, and I lose some of the enjoyment in the hobby that I love. So if I was in a position, I would definitely buy an expensive track saw, so I know when I want to make a cut, I haven't got to mess around. I can get it out straight away, and I've still got that enjoyment that I can carry on with the project. I think when frustration starts to come into your work, that's the kind of thing when you'll sit back and think, oh, I'm not going to go and do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes, and that hobby dies. So I think, obviously, your bank balance is going to play the biggest part with everything you do. If you ain't got the money, that's it. Forget it straight away.
I think that's the nail on the head right there. If you've got the money, let's hey, look, if we all are, Bill Gates, then this is a mute conversation. I mean, you just go out and buy the best there is in the market. But if you're an everyday working stiff like the majority of us are, then you have to do that balance, don't you, Joe? You have to balance what the bank account will afford and what you really would like. It's like, it's one of those things, Richard.
A couple of people have made a good few points in here. The Red Smith was one of them, and Simon Harmon as well was one of the other ones as well. They bought a couple of cheap saws, and just a fact of putting decent blades on them just made a hell of a lot of difference as well. Made rubbish tools into perfectly good workable tools.
Yeah, I'm quite a firm believer in even the less expensive end of the spectrum. Pick a tool. There's the cheap end of the market. There's the expensive end of the market. It doesn't matter what the tool is. Pick a tool. You can invest both your time and energy into improving that, and there's going to be a time sensitive sort of factor to that as well. Does that, you put the blade into it, get a better cut, make the homemade track, get a better result, a quicker result, a more enjoyable thing, and I'm all for that. When people come on my router courses, the majority of the time they are hobby people working in their sheds or doing what they love doing. They're not so much the tradesmen earning money from it. Now we use router jigs, and we use aids and guides and all the rest of it, and all of those things can be made yourself to some degree. And I always show this is the product that we're going to use, and the alternative is you could clamp a straight edge on there, 2 clamps, and it does the same job, for example. Now if you're doing it for a hobby and you want to hang 3 doors in your house, don't bother spending £200 on a hinge jig, because you're only I'll show you how to make, during the course of the day we'll show you how you can make your own hinge jig. But if you're a tradesman why waste your time making that hinge jig, which you can still do and people do, but who's paying you whilst you're making that jig?
Nobody. Yeah.
It is, everything's always a balancing act of where you want to, put your hard-earned money at the end of the day. Then going back to, I think Joe said about the hand tool side and the skill, and Chris touched upon the kind of the green-eyed monster. Now, I wouldn't be so bold as to say all the comments that I've heard of in the past, where someone's made I could do that if I had a workshop, £1 million, blah 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 blah. I wouldn't put that down to envy per se, but it does make me wonder. Going back to I've never heard anyone say or criticize someone for spending $300 on a hand plane compared to an equivalent power tool. It does make me wonder if there's a little bit of reluctance perhaps to want to maybe criticize somebody who's using really expensive hand tools based on the skill level that maybe they feel they have and that other person has compared to the power tool side.
I think I think going back to what Joe said there hits the nail on the head there, because I think it's perception. There's a perception that if you're going to be using hand tools, there's a higher level of skill as opposed to doing it this way. And so when you're only doing things with power tools, people don't view that as being as as skillful, and so they're more than willing to criticize. But going back to what Joe said and what you were talking about, and what you alluded to, Richard, as far as you can indeed, like the example that Joe said, the couple of guys in the chat said that Jamie mentioned, that you can put a nice blade in a cheap tool and improve that tool in a heartbeat. There are some surface planers out there that if you want to go buy, I think the one that I've looked at that's on the commercial market, at least here in the States, is the DeWalt, and it's not a cheap planer. It's like $500-600. I don't remember the actual dollar amount off the top of my head. You can actually spend $200 on a lesser brand, something like a Porter Cable or something, and all you really need to do is replace the cutter head in it, and the cutter head may cost you $150, and so and that cutter head, the new cutter head in that Porter Cable that costs less, will actually do the same, if not better job than that DeWalt that you went out and bought so it's just a matter of, I don't know, investigate what I don't know. I'm not Bill Gates, so I tend to spend a lot of time investigating tools and options before I actually pull my wallet out of my pocket and put money on the table. I want to know what I'm buying before I buy it. I'm not one of those guys that just runs and buys tools because it's a quick last minute decision while I'm standing at checkout. I mean, you just don't stand there at the checkout with a bag full of nails and go, oh, I think I'll get a table saw. It just doesn't happen. So I tend to kind of look into what I'm buying and then look into the options with it and read other people's comments. And you can absolutely do that.
We've got a question from the chat from Simon Harmon. He goes, when is it worth making a tool over buying one?
That's a really interesting question. And again, for me, it's going to boil down to, first and foremost, can I afford it? And what's the return that I'm likely to get on that machine? When do I need it for? And what's it for? I mean, Gerald Redsmith, he made his, was it a 72-inch by 2-inch belt sander? So take that as an example. For me to make something like that, I mean, I don't need one, but for me to make something along those lines, I've got to think, how much is it going to cost me to go and buy one? How much is it going to cost me to get all the materials together to purchase the parts? Then how much time is it going to be to build it? From a commercial point of view, who's paying me whilst I'm building it? There's a time factor.
And can you make up that cost difference in the end? And here's a perfect example that a lot of people are going to be very familiar with. At the Atlanta woodworking shows that Jamie and I both went to, they had the Wood-Mizer sawmills out back. Jamie and I think you remember seeing the guys. And and just the basic saw that we saw there, it wasn't a big sawmill whatsoever. It was a relatively portable sawmill, but those sawmills cost like $23,000.
Wow.
If you want to buy one. Now, let's go over to YouTube and go visit Matt Cremona, who just built that huge bandsaw that he did, and I know that he didn't spend more than $8,500 doing it. And Matt sells lumber. If you guys didn't know that, part of Matt's side business is he sells lumber that he mills. Is it worth it for him to build that sawmill? What do you think?
And it can cut a house in half.
Yeah. I think that Matt made the right decision. I think that Matt Cremona, when it came down to making your own tool as to going out and buying one, $8,500 and the time he spent doing it is going to pay for itself well in advance of if he had initially just pulled out his wallet and bought a $23,000 wood miser that wouldn't do half the job that his currently does.
Sure. I mean, sorry, Jamie, what was the name of the chap that asked the question? My memory is rubbish. Jamie's on mute.
It was Simon Harmon.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't get that, mate.
Simon Harmon.
It's Simon. So to answer Simon, to kind of get off the fence and answer Simon's question, for me, it would be, is it, if you want that machine to make you back money, I'm going to totally disagree with what Chris said on this one. If you're using that tool to make money, go and buy it. For me, that would be my first choice. But if you're doing it because you like doing it, it's your hobby, it's your passion, it's what you enjoy doing, then make it, because you're going to get just as much enjoyment out of making it, I think, as you are in using it to make other things. Now, there's a huge saving that Matt's done from $2,300 or $23,000 to $8,500. That's a big saving, even for a commercial business. So with that much distance, well, maybe it is worth making it.
Let me give you a flip side to that, and I'll flip it over to like Joe, and Joe can chime in on this. The people who got sent the X-Carves, some of these people who get sent these build-it-yourself 3D printers. By the time you're done making that tool and putting it together, how much time are you saving? As opposed to, Joe, I'm gonna direct this question directly to you. If you had gone out and bought a CNC pre-made, pre-built, delivered to your door, and you just started using that CNC, if something went wrong with that CNC that you bought, how long would it take you to fix it? As opposed to, how long would it take you to adjust that X-Carve?
Exactly. I wouldn't have a clue with the machine that came ready-made. I mean, before I was lucky enough to be sent the X-Carve, I was actually looking into purchasing a CNC. And the CNC, such as the X-Carve that come as a kit that you have to assemble yourself, was 3-4 times less expensive than a pre-built model. But as you say, when you spend that time of actually putting the tool together yourself, troubleshooting it becomes a breeze, because anything that goes wrong, you have that previous knowledge. Oh, that connects to that. That must be going wrong. Quickly get to it. Oh, here it is. Fix it. If you're making a tool from scratch, I always like to think of Matthias Wandel and his amazing tools that he makes, but such as the bandsaw. You could go and buy a commercial bandsaw, get it, and the blade might not run straight. Now, of course, you can spend hours looking on YouTube, reading articles, thinking, oh, well, I've got to change the alignment of the wheel at the top and everything like that. If you built the tool for yourself, it's instant. You know why the blade is acting the way it is. But then also you can apply that knowledge to other areas. But I think going back to the question itself that Simon asked, I would be more looking at the amount of money that I'd be able to save and the amount of money that would have to be put out originally. I mean, a rule of thumb, if the tool was less than £1,000 and I was saving half the money, then I'd be willing to make it myself. If it was more than half the money I'd have to put out in materials, and I'd sooner buy it. Over £1,000, I'd be much more willing to put the time in myself, because say the difference from £500 to £1,000 is £500. The difference from 1,000 to 2,000 is another 1,000. It's still double in both instances. But of course, the higher you go, the more you've got to put out. And I have also found with more expensive tools, the higher you go up, the less the return. So I would argue that the difference between a £5,000 table saw and a £25,000 table saw is minute compared to a £200 table saw and a £1,000 table saw. I think so. The more money you put out, the less you get for your money.
Up to a certain point, yeah, I definitely agree with that. But it's also going to be down to, you know, what's that machine for?
Yeah.
You know, and what can that machine return in terms of revenue through production? And now we're talking commercial, for sure. I think, but for a hobby, if it's what you love doing and you can justify and afford that money, then by all means, you know, go and make yourself happy, either in the short term or the long term. If you enjoy making it and it's not necessarily for, you know, a return in the future, then get the pleasure out of making it as much as using it. And like you've already sort of alluded to with the X-Carve, if it goes wrong, you know how to fix it because you made it in the first place. Once you start spending big bucks on expensive machinery and it goes wrong, well, hopefully you've spent the big bucks because it's not going to go wrong, or the service that comes as part of that price tag will sort it out for you. That's the one thing that a lot of people don't realize with the green tools, certainly here in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in the US. If you spend $200-300 more on a green track saw than a inexpensive track saw, you get 3 years insurance in case it gets stolen, 3 years warranty in case it goes wrong, 10 years guaranteed parts. You know, there's other things that you get, whereas if you spend $50 on it and it breaks within 6 months, that's it, you get another one. And this brings us to sort of the other side of the coin that I was hoping we'd get to, is when is it better off to almost buy tools in a disposable fashion? You know, buy the cheap one, it'll break in a year, I'll just buy another one at the end of the year. It's a bit like, you know, you buying an old banger and not having to MOT it. When the MOT's due or the test's due, you just scrap it and get a new one rather than paying out for a new car.
I'll give you my opinion right off the bat. Anything that for you I work in wood. Occasionally, I work in metal, but not a lot. So my opinion on that is I will spend less money on a tool that will help me do metalworking than I will on a tool that will do woodworking. An occasional, if you know you're only going to be using something as an occasional use tool, I will go Harbor Freight cheap on a tool because I know I'm not going to be using it day in, day out, day in, day out. I may pick it up once, twice a year. There's no point in me buying top of the line, let's just say a grinder to cut metal with or whatever. There's no point. I mean, I don't need that level of tool. I'm just going to be doing it, you know, a couple times a year. So does a $20 grinder from Harbor Freight appeal to me as opposed to an $80 grinder from somebody else? Yeah, because I'm just not going to use it. It's just, it depends on what you do and how you do it. If it's an occasional thing that you know you're going to need, but maybe just a couple times, then I'll go cheap. I don't have a problem with that.
I think experience plays a big part as well, because like going back a bit further into the show, talking about like buying cheap versus like buying cheap and then upgrading later on. When I first got into the hobby, I didn't know what tools I'd be using. So every tool I brought was secondhand. And then the more I was doing, I knew which was the tool I was picking up all the while, which was my go-to saw, which was my go-to drill. And I knew that's what I'll be upgrading next. But then also the more you do, the more you have an idea of what tool will be useful for you. So I am getting to the stage where I'm thinking it's going to be better for me to just buy the better tool first instead of getting the cheaper one, using it for a year or two, and then having to put in the money out anyway to get the better one. So I think it's a balance, really. If there's a tool that you kind of fancy, like maybe a jigsaw, so you can go and buy a £15 jigsaw, get a feel for it. Yeah, I'm going to be using this quite often. I'd like a decent jigsaw now. Go and spend a couple £100 on one. But then you might buy the jigsaw, find you never pick it up, So you've saved yourself the money in the long run by going for the cheaper option.
Yeah, and I know. I'm glad you say jigsaws actually, because there's I know quite a few people that have bought green jigsaws for £300-400 plus, and they hate them. They just don't get on with them, and that's £400 wasted. That's a lot of money for a jigsaw. Likewise, there's people out there that have spent 80 quid and they love it. So sometimes it's pot luck. You just kind of like fingers in the air sort of thing.
Well, there's an easy answer for that £400 jigsaw. Mount it to a table upside down and turn it into a scroll saw.
So why would you even bring scroll saws into the...
But at least you wouldn't have to keep changing the blade with it.
But you know what?
But
yeah, and I'll let Jamie chime in this, because you know what, related to exactly what Joe just said. I have a very cheap. The first tool I ever owned was first tool my parents would ever allow me to plug in the wall was indeed a scroll saw. It is absolutely the worst scroll saw in the friggin' world. It really is. And I hate using it. But I do know if I upgraded that, it would be a much more enjoyable thing for me to do. And I'm sure Jamie can chime in on this, because Jamie, when you started scroll sawing, you didn't start out with the top of the line machine, did you?
No, not at all. I started out. It must have the one I had. It must be, I'd say, the equivalent of maybe $40. The bed was at the widest point, maybe 11 inches, maybe a foot wide. At the widest,
I wouldn't mind 11 inches by a foot.
Yeah, I'll bet. at the rear.
Joe, every week. Every week. Gotta watch out for that guy. But Jimmy, compare that to what do you, and I don't need to know the brand, but I mean, compare that to what you're using now. And like Joe was saying, you buy the cheaper one, you find out you like it, and then you upgrade, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The one I had before, and there was no way to upgrade it or anything like that. And it was a pin blade, and that was it. There was no way, like I said, there was no way to upgrade it. So I hated being restricted by pin blades, and so I decided to give that one away to another local woodworker, and decided to upgrade to a 16-inch record power. See, so I had the 16-inch while Joe was stuck with the 11-inch.
You know, go ahead.
And so yeah, I ended up getting that one, and it's been a joy to work with.
I just love the fact that because I had a table saw that I gave away too, and that table saw, I mean, I'm telling you, it absolutely sucked. I hated that table saw, but I gave it away, and I felt, and it's funny how we feel so magnanimous about we gave our table saw away, and when all I know I do is I gave this guy one friggin' headache. It's like, but we turn it into, aren't I a good guy?
The difference between is I gave my one to a wood carver, and instead of him standing there for ages carving out a hole, he could just drill it out, cut out the mains, and then finish off carving what he needed to. So he weren't actually a scroll sawer.
Just using the tool to do the job that needed doing at the time.
Yeah, it's just help him out a little bit more.
So that could have been me, in fact, actually, with scroll saw.
Yeah,
Richard, this has been a great topic, but we're winding down on time, buddy.
We are, and I think we could probably go on for quite a while talking about this. And generally, if for anyone listening, whether you're listening live, watching live, or listening in the future, I personally would love to know what you think about this, and I'm sure the other guys would as well, because this is potentially, canned worms open everywhere, and all the rest of it. But I think you're probably right, Chris. I think we should wind this down now and find out what on earth everyone is both up to and watching on YouTube at the moment. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first then.
Go on then, Joe. Sort us out.
Well, I've been busy making radiator covers, as I touched on earlier. So I've got 3 radiator covers to make. I'm not actually doing a video of them because it'll just take too long, and I've already got a radiator cover video, but that's taking up all of my time. So as soon as I can get those out the way, I can get on to my next video. But I have been watching YouTube. I have had a chance to watch some YouTube this week. And somebody who stood out to me is Alex Steele. I'm really surprised I've never came across his channel before, because it's an absolutely massive channel. I think it's around 260,000 subscribers in the UK, and he does blacksmithing. But the thing that really caught my attention was he uploads every single day. And his videos, like Casey Neistat style videos, I mean, he's recently been making 70 hammers. And these are all forged, and he's got the industrial machines, and it's just fascinating to watch. I haven't got a clue what he's doing. I don't know where to begin with blacksmithing, but just the enjoyment of watching him work. It's a brilliant channel.
What's his name again?
Alec, my pronunciation, so it's ALEC, Steel. Perfect name, obviously.
STEELE?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and he's brilliant. So
link will be below. Yeah.
Exactly. Check out that link for sure.
That sounds like it sounds like it's your part of the world as well, with the old industrial smithing and the old black country. Yeah.
Well, he's got a much better accent than mine. I mean, you've only got to open up one of his videos and you think, no, that doesn't sound like where Joe's from. So.
Excellent. What about you, Jamie? What are you up to at the moment?
Well, Mark, so I actually got inspired by Mr. Steve Twidell today and done like a goblet on, I don't know what you'd call that. I've forgotten what it's called.
It looks like one of those kind of power weights you see the old girls walking down the street.
Yeah, sort of. I done a goblet coming out of a log.
That's really cool. Obviously, people listening can't see this, but it looks like a goblet coming out of a log.
Yeah, but I've got a picture of it on my Instagram, so if anyone wants to go and have a look at it. So yeah, so I made that today. So I'll probably have a drink out of that later on. Not a big drink, but I'll have a drink out of it.
Lots of little drinks.
Lots of little drinks, yeah. So what have I been watching? I have been watching Mr. Tim Sway. He made a wooden lunchbox for David Gagne over at Elm City Vintage. There's a couple of reasons why I enjoyed this. First of all, the end product it was incredible. It was all done on the CNC machine, like 3D carving and things like that. And the second reason, and probably the main reason, is he made a few faux pas, if you like, along the way. And instead of just editing it out of the video and just putting the end result in, he actually highlighted the fact that he was still learning the CNC and things like that. And he actually put it all in the video and just explained it all and things like that. And I thought that was really, really good of him and things like that. So yeah, Tim Sway. That's my shout out.
Tim does some really cool stuff. He's another idea guru. Just the concept that he comes up with is brilliant. I do like Tim's stuff.
If anyone's ever interested in making their own guitar, I've watched all of Tim's series of these guitars, and yeah, it's incredible.
Excellent. So, what did you get for your birthday?
A bandsaw.
A bandsaw?
Yeah.
I saw your picture. I didn't realise that was a birthday present. I thought that was just something that you'd stumped up for.
No, that was my girlfriend bought me a bandsaw.
Obviously felt sorry for him with the scroll saw. Got him something proper instead.
Let me just get a couple of bits of paper a minute. Joe, can you see that?
Compensating.
She didn't get it at Poundland though, did she?
No, unfortunately not.
And are you having a birthday party?
Nah.
And will there be jelly and ice cream?
Nah.
You see, that's the sure sign somebody's getting old, when none of that happens anymore. It's like, okay, Jamie.
There's gonna be bonfire and alcohol.
Yeah. We're gonna be relating to each other much better very soon. That's cool.
Yeah. Chris told me that was a good idea for a party in Atlanta.
It is. I think Richard's frozen up on us, so I'll just go ahead and take it from here and hope that he rejoins us.
The shock. He's gone into shock.
I think he has. I haven't been working on much. I mean, obviously, I'm limited with my my little finger injury that I have here, which isn't so little. But I do have a couple ideas and some videos that I can do one-handed. But who I've been watching, and I'll you know what, Jamie, great segue, because I'll piggyback off of yours. I actually watched David Gagne from Elm City Vintages, his latest video, and if you haven't seen that, it's actually pretty cool. He made like a giant garden arbor, and it's basically a garden decoration, but he made a giant spider web out of rebar. I don't know if you guys have seen this video or not yet, but it was actually really well done. And David does cool stuff, and I gotta love the man because he loves his Yingling lager, and he doesn't have a problem showing that in the video either, too. So, David, we simpatico there, brother. But yeah, if you have the chance to check it out, David Gagne. The name of his YouTube channel is Elm City Vintage. Go check out David. And Alan asked me to step in for him today since he is unable to be here. Because obviously we know who wears the pants in his family, because his wife wouldn't let him. He wanted me to give a shout out to a gentleman, and I hope I get this name right. A gentleman named Guido. I'm going to say Vola Design, but I'm not sure. The name is Guido, but the middle is VROLA Design. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. So Guido, if you're listening, and I've just butchered that, forgive me. But anyway, he put out a video called Crash a Wooden Lamp. And you guys know Alan. Alan gets like, you show Alan a light and he becomes like a deer in the headlights. Oh. But Alan wanted me to give that a shout out. So if you have a chance to go check out Guido, and I hope I'm VROLA Design, Crash Wooden Lamp, go check it out for Alan because that's his recommendation for you this week.
Excellent. So is it my turn now? Is it?
It is. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm supposed to be hosting. I've got no idea what's going on, and my internet just died. So I will try and pick things up. Well, I've been working for a client these past few days, doing some under the stairs storage and things, and I've had absolutely zero time to put videos out for, I don't know how many. The weeks are just dragging out now. I think it's got to be getting in for 2 months for a video. I've got a couple of projects that are nearly finished video-wise. So, you know, if you do subscribe to me, then it's probably worth hanging around for those. And I'm doing a load of flooring next week as well. Flooring, skirting boards, architraves, miters, mouldings, all that sort of stuff. Hence the reason for tonight's show. And the topic, because that was kind of the reason that I bought this horrendously expensive tool for. And that leads me into my shout out for this week, who is a gentleman called Dave Stanton, which I don't know if anyone's heard of him. This is an Australian chap. He makes some absolutely awesome stuff. He produces some really cool videos, and his dog is awesome. Watch his channel just for his dog. He's got this little pug dog, and they're cool. Presumably he thought it was a British bulldog, and that it'd grow, but that's not the case. If anyone gets that reference, if not, go and watch. What's the film called? I've forgotten this. It's gone out of my head now. It'll come back to me. I'll put a link down. It's an awesome film. Kingsman. That's it. It's an awesome film. Anyway, Dave does some really cool videos, and he does a lot of kind of review type stuff and tips and guides and builds and kind of helping people out to impart his knowledge on making decisions, and that kind of fits with what we've been talking about tonight, and that's why I've been watching him, obviously. So hopefully,
I believe he also has a live show as well, don't he?
I believe he does. Yes, I haven't watched him live, but I have seen quite a few, because we're friends on Facebook now, actually. So I keep seeing a few things pop up in my Facebook feed that he's going live, but because he's in Australia, they're generally not. I'd see the thing and it was like, oh, he was live like 2 hours ago and I've been asleep.
No, I mean, he actually does it on YouTube. He does like an hour-long show. I think it's on Saturdays he does it.
That I wasn't aware of. So, yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that. But I know he's a fantastic chap anyway. Excellent. Is that it? We're heading towards... Joe's got a big smile on his face, so I'm assuming we're okay for time. Is that right?
Actually, we may actually come in under an hour if you'll shut the hell up, Richard.
Sorry. Go on, you crack on.
Wrap it up, mate. I love you. Happy birthday, Jamie.
Yeah, many happy returns, Mr. Page. where can everyone be found on their social medias? Jamie, you might as well go first because it's your birthday.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. You can find me on YouTube at JP Woodwork and Twitter and Instagram at JP_Woodwork.
Excellent. Joe?
Average Joe's Joinery everywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Instagram, because I'm going to be changing the username on that one. So just Average Joe's Joinery.
Oh, so you're not going to be Average Joe's Photography?
No, I'm going to change it over, get rid of the confusion, I think. Just Average Joe's Joinery everywhere.
Excellent. Oh, well, that should make things a bit easier, hopefully. At least for me, because I'm rubbish. I always forget things like that. Chris, what about you? Where can we find you except on Instagram?
Oh, well, cool. No, I see an opening. I'm going to be Average Joe's Photography on Instagram.
Cool. I never post on there either.
Why not? He's already got subscribers. I may as well just grab him. Chris Cute on YouTube, Make the First Cut on Facebook, and Alan's not here, so Alan's links, just go look up the Woodworking Junkie on all your social media and you'll find Alan.
Or not, because he didn't turn up.
If his other half will let him be on
if she'll let him.
Good stuff. Well, make sure if you're still listening to us and you've not got bored, go out and check guys out, subscribe to their channels, like, follow, tweet, do all that stuff. And I've been Rick Morley. You can find me at brainfizz.uk. That'll take you across to all my social media stuff and under my name on YouTube. So once again, thanks for listening and taking the time to be bored by us. We will be back next week with another topic, I hope. So you take care.
Have a great week, everybody.
See you later. Bye-bye.